Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a los Encuentros TCM, un día más.
Hello,
Hoy
good
os vamos a proponer
morning,
un
welcome
viaje
once
que
again.
nos va a llevar, que
Today
vamos a
we're
empezar en el
proposing
norte de Colombia
a
y que
trip
vamos a
that
terminar
starts
haciendo un círculo muy
north of
grande
Colombia,
a
and we're
orillas
going to
del
do
río
a big
Oria con la
turn
película
around
Oreña
towards the
de Coldo
Oria
Almandoz,
River
que está
with
ahí
Oreña,
en una
a
esquinita
film from
que luego
Coldo
ya
Almandoz,
pasará a
who's
formar
right by
parte
the
del
corner and
escenario.
who's
Una
then
película en la que vamos a pasar
going to be
también
part of
por
the
Galicia,
scenery.
por
On the
Cuba
way, we'll
y
go
por
through
México.
Cuba,
Tenemos 5
Galicia,
equipos
and
de
Mexico.
películas
We have
y para
5
ellos
film
quiero que les
crews, and
dediquemos
would
para apoyar
like,
este
I'd
viaje un
like
fortísimo
you
aplauso.
to please welcome them with a warm.
Bueno, pues nuestra primera película
Our
es
first film,
la película colombiana Pájaros de
Colombian
Verano. Nos
film,
acompaña su
Pájaros de
directora
Verano,
y productora Cristina
Summer
Gallego y
Birds.
su director
We
y director
We're
Ciro
here,
Guerra
Cristina
Picón.
Gallego,
Ellos
its
son unos viejos
producer and
conocidos
its
del Festival de San
director,
Sebastián, donde han
Ciro
presentado
Guerra
películas
Picón.
como
It's not the
El
first time they're here
abrazo de
with,
la
they've already
serpiente.
presented
La
films
película,
like
como digo, se
El abrazo de la
Pájaros de
serpiente.
Verano.
The film is called Pájaro de
Transcurre
Verano,
en el
Summer
norte
Birds,
de
and it takes
Colombia,
place in the north of
en la
Colombia,
cultura
within the
Wayuu.
Wayuu Native
Y cuenta una
American
historia
culture.
muy especial
The
de
story
cómo
is
esa
quite
cultura se vio
special, very
corrompida por la
particular, how the
llegada
culture
del
was
contrabando de
invaded
marihuana en
and
los años
corrupted
70
by
y los 80. No sé si esta
the
historia en
marijuana
Colombia es
smuggling
conocida,
in the
y si no,
1970s.
¿cómo la
I don't know if
descubristeis
this
y cómo
story is
documentasteis
known
para hacerla?
in Colombia, and how did you discover it and document yourself? Hello, everybody. It's a story that is quite unknown. We heard about it 10 years ago when we were filming in that region in northern Colombia. It's a story that is known within Colombia and outside of Colombia. It's the origin of the first steps of Colombia in the drug smuggling business. It's located in a Wayuu community and a desert, and it's a community that is located in the border with the desert, and in a place where the border is not respected between Venezuela and Colombia. So it's a community that lived off smuggling, and it was always had a trade with the Caribbean and Venezuela. So it's about the beginnings, the quite naive beginnings, and the transformation of a culture and a family through the arrival of the gringos, the North Americans who were looking for marijuana in the 60s. So the society is transformed from a rural society to a capital society. Yes, you say it's a process of, they show how they, on the process they lose their souls. So I think the ethnographic and the documenting work must be quite hard. I don't know how much it still exists of this culture. There's a lot of documenting work. Well, the Wayuu is the most important indigenous in Colombia, more than 300,000 people. They've lived for 5,000 years in a desert territory that is very with a very scarce in resources, and they've organized their society through the respect for the word. There's lots of clans and families, so the fight for the resources is quite difficult. But they've defended their lifestyle fiercely, first against the pirates, the Spanish, now with the governments. And they're mostly against the mining industry that has completely devastated their territory. So it's a people, a culture that has survived through smuggling, because it's the way in, the access from the Caribbean Sea towards the continent. They've defended their territory, and they're totally used to smuggling liquor, cloth, coffee. So when there is a new element in play, an element that is demanded, the marijuana from the Sierra Nevada, so that became the Pandora's box. It means what it became afterwards, the international drug smuggling, a moment in history that transformed the world and still keeps changing it. So the Wayuu people, they learned a lot. It's a big lesson that they want to share with the world. So when we approached them to ask them if they wanted to tell the story, we thought that there would be no problem, but there would be a problem. But no, they're really thrilled to tell it. There's lots of stories. Everybody has somebody in the family who was into that, or because it was quite voracious at some points. And in the 70s, 80% of the weed in the U.S. came from this place. So the Santa Marta Gold legend. And they give us a chance to give a vision of this subject that is completely far away from the exploiting and the glorification of the capos and the satanizing the Colombians, satanization of the Colombians. So we want to tell the story from our point of view, and the Wayu people, the story of the Wayu people was a door to this access. We'll keep talking after watching some footage of the film.
Tu acústica, tu óxica, tu eyúcaro. Araura, chi asibukai, chi arinchai, musisa in, chongwa hapu supura no ruin tuin guay.
Putu haus macaca turiantaya. Sukata pahi rainta kwaipa supusuwa saututa pusika.
So punaya tu pushka, so punawesca sas pushuaya.
Ahí vemos a los intérpretes.
So we can see the interpreters of the film, their characters, and we hear them speaking Wainaki, their original language. Why did you decide to film the whole film in Wainaki? That must have made the very difficult, because you might have looked for Wainaki interpreters. It's Wayanaki. It's the language they speak. It's a community that keeps their tradition and language alive. We wanted to get close to this community, not thinking that it's still alive and still alive in the drug smuggling world, but it's about, we want to talk about the transformation of a society, a traditional society, that's the Wayu society. That is profoundly capitalist, and it's created it's suggested as a point of view. The actors, it's a mixture of natural and professional actors. The professional actors, they accepted the challenge to film it in Wayanaki, a language that has no connection whatsoever with Spanish, and it's extremely difficult, and they accepted the challenge. So our first main worry was with regard to the Wayu community, because we wanted them to feel because the film is turned there, and the characters are not, the actors are not from there. So I guess it happens the same with the Basque language. When people come here and they try to interpret and speak the language, there must be a big worry about their interpretation. But these actors, they did it. And when we showed the film to the communities, to the Kayu community, it was very warmly welcome, and they even understood that they didn't pronounce well, or they couldn't be able to understand them, because they recognize, they acknowledge the effort for someone who doesn't have anything to do with that culture to be able to interpret in that language. So integrating the non-professional and the natural actors, and learning the habits, how they thread a bag, and what their beliefs are, and the natural actors, they had to learn to act on set, how to repeat, the concentration and the long periods of turning. I want to add that 70% of the film is in Wayu, and 90% of the technical team was Wayu. Wayu culture has a lot of magical elements and rites that are integrated in the film, and that is also aligned with the Colombian culture. How have you mixed the harsh reality and magic? Yeah, it's very interesting, because the research process, we found that Gabriel Garcia Marquez, that is very well known around the world, is so profoundly rooted in the Wayu imaginary. He grew up surrounded with YU servers. He tells this in his biography, and this filters in your simmers in his literature, the strong feminine roles, the myths. So the people know a lot more about YU culture than they imagine, but this imaginary is extremely rich. It doesn't, you can't fit it in, possibly fit it in one single film, but there's a closer, more vision to the traditional Colombian culture. It's a story of people who live interpreting their dreams, interpreting the nature, interpreting the migration of birds, and how to survive, and how to survive that way in a context where the capitalism has completely invaded them without any mediation, without any presence of the government. And it shows the effect it can have in society. So it's a story that goes further than the YU culture, but the echoes are very much connected with the Greek tragedy and other genres in film that are universal, and that in this film are told in a way that has never been told before, because it's the first time the YU people is represented in cinema. I'd like to add that the film is an encounter and an impact between the tradition that is corrupted by power in the shape of wild capitalism, and this has to do with the shock of these two worlds, the impact of these two worlds of family powers, the feminine and the masculine, the natural and the overnatural, the real and instinct. This is why we wanted to turn the genre around. It's a gangster film which is told from the gangster films are usually told from the masculine point of view, and we want to tell them from a feminine point of view, from the female point of character that is not only powerful and a strong family character, but it has things that are present not only in the YU culture, but everywhere for women who are connected to their instinct and to omens, and cultures where the wise figures are women and mothers, whereas the world is ruled by men, and it's everything that we know and we are able to do, but we can't go any further to do it. So this is what the film tells about, things that are overnatural, but actually are truly natural. We wanted to explore that vision, this other second vision of the world, and bring a story from a place that is not being told about that has been silenced. The stories have been told to us by men, and when you talk about the good things, they talk about the fleet and the people they killed, but we wanted to tell the story from a perspective that is our own, that we feel as our own. It's a family tragedy and national tragedy, and this has to be told from the eyes of a woman who takes care of the family and sees how it is completely collapsing. Well, we're taking this title's consideration. We have been nominated by the 9 nominations for the Latin American Prize. This film was presented in Cannes, and we'll keep talking about them while it's presented in Berlin. Thank you very much, and hope to see you again.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, pues de Colombia
from Colombia, we
pasar a otra mesa
we move on to the next table, and we're in Cuba.
Nos trasladamos a Cuba de la mano del director Francisco Marise, y nos acompaña también
Francisco
Luis
Marise,
Lechac, que es
director, and Luis Lechac, the sound designer of Para la Guerra, for the War, a film that has been presented yesterday and today with a new director's section. It has just one character, and it's an old soldier, a Cuban soldier that has been hooked to the war in Angola and Nicaragua. When and how did you discover this character, and what was so interesting in him to dedicate him a whole documentary film? Well, I don't know if he's hooked or he's attached. I think he thinks that the revolution is possible, and that's the romantic, the beautiful thing. A soldier that has been completely wounded hasn't been completely defeated, and I thought that was very. That was beautiful for him to film this. I ran into him by hazard in Cuba. I live in Cuba, and he was in Cuba in the San Antonio de los Baños Film School. And sometimes the big brother that generates between the forest and people who are trying to do projects. I was walking one day and I ran into a man that came out of a house and told me, "Do you want to come in my house? Come in, I have some rum and we can talk." Come on, he insisted, and well, second try he managed, right, to convince you. Yes, I come in, and he was watching the North American remake of Pearl Harbor, and one of the battles that was taking place in a completely full-on volume on the screen. He was giving orders to the soldiers of how to act, and he invited me to work, and he told me, "Yes, I went to the Angola where I'm a soldier." So that's how we met. It wasn't quite natural, organic. It was by hazard, and we saw each other next week, and he wouldn't stop talking about war. And he explained me how to walk on a minefield, and I didn't understand anything. And I told him, "Hey, why don't we do a film about this? What are the exercises that you do when you were a soldier?" "Yes, come on, let's do it." So we started to play war together. He started to remember through his body, and doing the exercises that he used to do when he was 16 years old to be a special commando, an elite commando. And he spent 8 years fighting body to body in the jungle to become a super soldier. So with Luis, we went to see him to his place many times, and we shared war films with him. He has a lot of Second World War films of land and air attacks. So we spend a lot of afternoons, and Andres always offered us some rum or a little bit of mango. So we spend his stories, his war stories, because sometimes they're really rough stories, like they have been in reality. But the most interesting is that I felt that Andres had a very rich imaginary, a very rich inner world, and with the film, from his stories, we tried to build again what we hear, but from trying to recreate this imaginary, his fables and his crazy stories.
Corrernos un poco, salirnos de la palabra.
Running out, escaping from the testimony or the word. There's a lot of really hard films that are we've already seen for the live, but we were fascinated how he moves his body. There's a certain choreography which has to do with the military. So Andres, we told him and what he had to do, and he danced while he did these military gimmicks and gestures, like putting himself down on the ground. It's very like a sculptor, how he holds the posture, and this has a lot to do with the military and the film. We're going to meet Andres, for those who don't know you, including the choreography.
Bueno, pues ese Andrés,
Well, that's
pero la
Andrés.
película además
But the film,
con Andrés
besides
enseña
Andrés,
otras cosas, habéis utilizado también material
shows
documental,
other
me ha
things.
llamado
You've
mucho la
shown
atención ese
documentary
material documental que utilizáis
material
sobre cómo de alguna
has
forma formaban a los soldados
about how they train soldiers, even children in the military education, and it's quite surprising. And with time, it's like ridiculous. It's like a athletic shows. How did you come to this footage? Well, with Andrés, with one of his colleagues, who was the creator of the Cuban martial arts, gave me a VHS tape, a cassette, and I digitalized it for his family, and I asked if I could borrow it, and he says it was shown on Cuban TV, and as military material, it couldn't be brought out again, and we couldn't obtain it. So that's how we came to it. So we were very conscious. The sound is very works together, complements the images very well. And there's a documentary side because Andrés exists, but he's also the main character in a film. So we can't call him a character, but he lived everything that we tell about. So with these images, we try to move all the time to explore his memory. And how do we explore his memory? Coming out of the most realistic of the documentary part. So we think, okay, everything is good. The false documentary, the mise-en-scène, the experimental.
It's
the memory, so everything. We can use everything. So he said, yeah, the memory is not always true to the reality. It has their own imagination. There's also a subjective sound that often comes from Andrés' own mind, and sometimes you use the sound to give to suggest, to provide information from outside. How did you work with it? Well, like Fran was saying, the film was there's multiple styles where experimenting in different fields is what we look for. So many times we based from a very specific documentary material.
Hay un anuncio en la televisión de Raúl
Castro. For instance, an advert from Raúl Castro on TV. And from the filming from the sound on TV, we use the sound, stretch it, transform and revert, and play with space in film theaters to create feelings. Because in film, the sound. The images are good to tell stories, but I think the sound works better creating feelings. So all the time we were thinking what were the feelings that we were provoked, and how to play with the story as better as possible, and the dialogue between editing sound and editing images. Well, I was back in Spain, and he was in Cuba or in Brazil. So, but we had this correspondence of text and images and a conversation within the film about editing the film. And we always had something, a goal, or something that we bear in mind. I'm lucky enough that Javier Rebollo, I think that we like so much, the producer and editor of the film, was the editor of the film. So when I arrived to his place, I arrived with many parts, archive, mise-en-scène, everything that you see in the film. And I thought, wow, I think this is too much, Javier. There's not long, but a lot of different elements. No, don't worry, boy. Every film is a collage, and every collage is a film. I think we are also the Rebollo soldiers. Thank you very much. And a curious fact is that it started with a rum bottle, and at the end of the film, it says, the film ended with ham and wine. It's the trip from Cuba to Europe. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Javier Rebollo. So I hope to see you again soon.
Me llevo los micros. Bueno, y en nuestro viaje llegamos ahora
On
a
a journey,
Galicia
we arrive
para
in
ver
Galicia
y para
to
charlar
watch
una
and
película
talk
que se
about
titula
a
Trote,
film that's
el
called
trote de los
Trote,
caballos. Nos
Trot,
acompaña
the
su
Trot
equipo, es una
of
película que
Horses.
se ha presentado en
The
Zabaltegui, nos
crew
acompaña el director,
is with us,
Sassi
a
Baño,
film
el
that
actor,
has been
al que
shown in
todos conocéis,
Zabaltegui,
Celso Bugallo, y Tamara Canosa,
Tamara
actriz.
Canosa, the
Una
actress,
película
Celso Bugallo,
ambientada en la Galicia rural,
actor,
una Galicia rural
and
que
Maria
cambia,
and Sacho Baño,
que está
director.
en,
A film
digamos,
that it's
hablamos antes también de
located in
Colombia,
Galicia,
algo parecido ocurre en esta película,
rural
igual
Galicia.
no
We've
gráfico,
talked the
pero
same thing about
una cultura que
something
va
similar in
cambiando
Colombia.
y
There's a
que deja
culture that is
descolocados a los
changing,
personajes.
a culture that
No sé nada de
lives
ti, Sasio.
to the
No sé qué
main
relación,
characters
no sé de
completely
dónde eres
out
ni
of
qué
place. I don't
relación
know
tienes
about you,
con esa Galicia
Sacio. I
rural
don't know what
que
your
no sé si
relationship
perteneces
is
a
with
ella.
that rural
Mi mirada
Galicia
es
is. I don't know if you
curiosa
belong
también.
there, but you have a your vision is a curious vision. Yes, I belong. I'm originary from the Galician mountains and the countryside. It's a film that tries to film the end of the relationship with the animals in the rural world. We're more we move away further and further from the animals. We isolate them from the human society. We put them. We box them in little farms, animals, and I wanted to tell this story, this really personal relationship with the animals, to prove that once at a certain point we looked at the eyes to animals and we felt of the same species. So it's a feel about loneliness, about people that are unable to communicate. I think you must know more about this kind of characters, and the spectator has to guess. How did you prepare the script? Was it deliberate so the spectator could fill in the gaps? Yes, I talk about animalizing the characters, to removing from them the capacity of thinking and speaking, and to lower them down to the animal condition, to have them a little bit hidden and not to be, and they're not able to manage their internal debates, and that causes many internal conflicts that makes them move from one side to the other. So the script was planned to tell everything that we hide, giving place to the spectator to understand and to enter in a world that is far from them and is strange to them. But if you live in the countryside, that absent father, for instance, the father of Celso Bugallo's father, the father is never at home, and his role is to bring money at home and to live outside of the house, not to take care of emotion or the education of the people or of his children or his wife. And I wanted to tell about this world that is fortunately changing these days. So your character doesn't speak much. I think is that good for an actor, or is it very difficult to transfer emotions without words? Well, I've tried to follow the instructions from Sacio, excuse me, and I think I understood what he wanted, what he meant to do. To mix to animalize the current state, so that both the animalization is something very present, but on the other side, that the human animal beast or human animalism, which is shown in a more remote. From a more remote angle, because we have evolved a lot. But I think the film, what the film reveals is characters that are experimenting that animalization due to the circumstances. Trote is the name of the film. There's a lot of horses. There's many characters that don't even speak. They communicate through their gestures or looks. We're going to see some of the images.
Per què no parles com ella?
Non è fácil falar con ela.
I contigo sí.
Que faz?
Que pasou?
Que? Con meu pai. Buscando as bestas.
Bueno, ahí vemos algunas imágenes de trote. Celso, te veíamos.
Vemos algunas, we see some footage of trote. How was it to work with horses? So it was beautiful because it was very interesting. I didn't count on living something like this on this film. I really enjoyed it with horses because I love horses. And I think it's an animal that is still, it's always the same. It's remained the same from the ancient times to our times, and I love it because of that, because it hasn't evolved. It's not more, it's not preventive, or it doesn't take more care of humans. I feel that we should take more care. But I felt really well working with us. Tamara, your character is a view from the outside. A character doesn't understand what happens to everybody, their whole in their family, their husband. How did you approach it? Do you have any relationship with the rural? Well, my character is the one who tries to understand. She freaks out because she thinks that nobody knows to communicate and feels the tension. I'm very far from the rural world, and he tried, and that's what he looked for, that we were close. But I think that Satya, during this casting, did something that is kind of opposed to what you usually do on a casting for a film. Directors usually look for actors and actresses who have an energy that is as aligned with the characters as possible. But Maria Vázquez, the main character, or Diego, or myself, we speak a lot, we're very talkative, we're very expressive, we talk very fast, and on this film,
O sea, nos llevó absolutamente a todo lo contrario.
And drove us to the total opposite. So that's why it was. He wanted to look for the energy of frustrated people, of animals in cages that are frustrated because they can't express themselves. So at the end of every day of filming, you were like, completely tense and reprived. Yes, we did a lot of interview because that was a way of letting out the tension and the lack of communication and the timings. It was the opposite of we were naturally are. So, well, it's good because the interview would not be possible if you had me like in your character. So, the images about the horses, it's a rapa das bestas. It's a rapa das bestas. It's a. Can you tell us about this tradition? Yeah, it's a 500-year-old tradition in Galicia, where the horses that live in the wild in the mountains, once a year, especially the men from the villages go capture them, and they capture them and close them in a sort of arena. They make them lay down. They cut their hair, and they marked just to show them that they belong to someone, and when they're actually theoretically wild horses. This tradition is dying because younger people are not interested in horses, and I wanted to capture the cinematography in this tradition, because it's the sound of the horses and when they put them down is very powerful. So, and it's a film about instinct. You don't know what's happening, but it's waking up something in you. So we work a lot on the sounds, on spot points, and everything that makes the story turn it comes from the sound, where it usually comes from the images. So the action is driven from external sounds. Trote is a film that was premiered in Ikusmira Berriak in San Sebastián, and it's turned around and you close in the circle. I hope there will be more circles, and that will bring you back to San Sebastián. Thank you to all three of you.
Bueno, pues nuestra cuarta parada de hoy es
our fourth stop today is in Mexico.
La Camarista,
the chambermaid from the new director section. The producer Tatiana Garayera is here with us, and the main actress, or absolute actress, because she's practically in every
Gabriela, se te ve muy pispireta, muy sonriente, pero tu personaje
minute. Gabriela, we see you're very gay, very joyful, but your character has nothing to do with this. It must have been very, very hard. Well, it was a gift. From the moment I saw the script, that really I was really attracted by the character, the situation. I wanted to do this, and I knew it. It was a character that was very well defined from the script, and when I met the director, I understood everything, because she'd been researching for many years, and she was so passionate on the subject. So fortunately there was a chemistry. She chose me, and now here I am. Well, the character that she's talking about is Eve, and it's a chambermaid. Let's meet her. She's a chambermaid. Let's meet her.
Bueno, ahí la vemos en su trabajo diario.
We see her on her daily routine, on her daily work. This script is based on a theater play written by Lila Vilés. Did you watch the play before, or were you influenced by the play that was based on our true character? Well, I heard about the play, but I didn't get to watch it because it wasn't. It was not very easy to go to the places where it was shown. So I didn't. I heard about it. She told me about it, but I know that doesn't have much to do with the film. When she edited, she realized that her need was to make a film who actually spoke about what she wanted to talk about. So the film ended up being totally something else. They don't have anything to do with each other. Yeah, the theater play was passing on the hotel where we filmed. So Lila, the director, met a lot of the people, more of the workers, a lot of chambermaids, and was inspired, and some of them, and that's how the script came out. That's what did you have to train? Did you have to learn the job? Well, it was quite quick, but we did, because we didn't have much time. We had to film straight away. That's what the director wanted to do. So I arrived in the casting, so they confirmed that it would be the role was mine, and 2 weeks later we had to be filmed, and so it was 17 days of turning the film. So the training lasted for about 2 days on some hours during when the actual chambermaids were available, because the hotel kept open, and they kept with a daily schedule. So they were really generous, and they stepped on the train. They jumped on the train thanks to the connection they have with Lila, and they lend us a hand. Then they trained us and taught us on their breaks. So you turned 17 days on a luxury hotel that, in the meantime, kept working. So the production must have been a nightmare. No. No, actually not. They were very welcoming. They closed parts of the hotel for us, and they really helped us. We had a warm welcome. We were a crew of 10 people, so we knew how to just make ourselves scarce amongst clients, and that's how he managed to film. So after this film, you have a short career somehow, but maybe there's a milestone in your career, or at least in your professional career, to feel as an actress. Oh yeah, it's already a milestone. I feel so lucky. This film has marked a milestone in my film career, which is short for now, but it's going through the right path. We're talking a lot about silence today. We'll talk about silence in the next film, and I think your film is your character is a silent character. You feel a lot. So for an actress, this must be difficult when to play. Well, I don't know if it's most difficult, but I like this contention. I like to observe, and I like to approach the characters from a sublime, subtle way, with very much respect from the profession. And this is the kind of characters that give me the opportunity of approaching them that way. Thank you very much for both of you. Thank you for your film, because we talked about films we were born from passion, and this is one of them. The need to do them. You had to start not to let the passion fade away. Thank you to both of you, and we'll see you in the future. Thank you.
Bueno, y como decía al principio,
and like I said from the beginning, we're going to end this journey of today's encounters very close to home, only a few kilometers away on the Oria River mouth. That's where the Oreina film takes place. We are here with Koldo Amandatis, director, which he's just a local almost. Well, how many times? Well, I don't even want to mention about it. Well, Koldo has presented many films in Tabatel, so has been here in several occasions. We're here with Patxi Bizquert and Ahmed, both actors of the film. So, Koldo, you've been usual in these encounters, but this is your first, not your first conventional feature film, or why have you changed? Well, actually, I haven't thought much about it. I have the feeling that after so many years of doing what I do, what I like to do, at some point you have the feeling of having been in a comfort zone, and that every project that you approach every project from the same perspective, the same insight of a laboratory and experimental. So I tried to feel, I had the feeling of proving myself that I was capable of doing a story with characters and actors that talked about basic concept, and do a film that is more conventional, most ordinary. I can't tell you why. It's a process. I started to write. I didn't have the hope of bringing it out, of releasing it, and at some point we went steps further and further until we arrived to the point where we were going to do the film. So you thought you wouldn't do it? Well, I wasn't certain that it would have been financed and that I would end up doing it as we did it. I'm used to working in a different way with much less budget, a lot more freedom. So this was kind of surprised me, but the way it came, I warmly welcomed it. So the landscape is fundamental in this film, in the Oria River mouth, between Zubieta and Orio. Why did you choose this landscape? Well, the story starts from the landscape, and that's kind of strange for me, but it's a peripheral area. It's only 5 minutes away from here where we're sitting, and it's an area that mixes roads, industries, and farms and rural landscapes. So it's an area where it's really obvious that there's been left behind, or an industry and decadent industry, and nature has taken over again. There's more and more wildlife. The roads are less and less abandoned. So, and that's important. But another thing that motivated me to do the film, to turn the film there, is that once I've chosen the landscape, I see that the human landscape was different to what I imagined. I thought that there was the people who lived there had lived there for many generations, native to the place, to put it somehow. But I realized that there was a lot of people who had come from abroad, and to these people they can't afford to live in the city centers, so they've started to create communities in these peripheral communities where industry, agriculture, and nature merge. So I thought that it was very interesting. It's not a shock, it's not an impact, but it's a new conviviality that is taking place in these kind of areas. We're going to see some images of Oreña deer.
Ona bizitera etorren zenean. Saharatik etorri ginen, 6 urte edo nituenean.
Zuek argia zu. Te lo debo la noche.
Kartzela gerdizu soilik askatasunak kentzen.
Orduan zer?
Novia palma. Hemendik aldea egin behar zuela esan ziorrak.
Ez du ludik anaiak zaretenik.
Kontu ziulia horrekin.
Bueno, ahora, perdón, digo,
Pachi, we talked about silence, but wow, those silence are quite important. You and your brother who live in the same house and you haven't spoken for ages, yet it's two brothers that don't speak to each other, and you don't even know from the last time they spoke, but they don't speak, but they express things, and that's the magic of this film, that you can express a lot of things without words, what happens between the brothers and between other characters, and this is the wealth of the film. Yeah, your character represents the tradition, what you won't want to change, a person that is very rooted to the earth and that rejects everything that's new. Yes. Within this jungle, I am the local beast, but a two-footed beast, and completely integrated with the rest of the fauna, the animals who live in the jungle. That's my character, that's what I want to transmit. And somehow, it's not my bet, but it's also, I also try to tend towards that world. I don't have any family, and my only family is a brother I don't to speak to. So I get close to Khalid, because Khalid comes to the marsh and meets me, and from then on I start to behaving as if this newcomer belongs to me. I try to teach him how the marsh can also be a source of life and possibilities for the future. And at the same time, I help him with his studies at school, and somehow this humanizes this character in the sense that his care, how he takes care of this person who is not original from there, but he makes him his, and he wants him to keep him forever. The second character is Khalil. Is this your first film? Did you already have any experiences in theater or film? Well, I did a couple of castings. I was studying here in Jurimante, and they sent me an email. They needed a character from Sahara, so I just jumped on the train. I passed the first cut, and second one was with Koldo and the producer, and then my character is so similar to my real life, so that's why Koldo decided it would be me. And then it's curious because you speak Basque in the film, and many of the characters approach him in Basque, so they have the previously think that he can't speak Basque because he's an outsider. Yeah, of course it speaks about that. So because these years we're promoting the film, and the people who haven't watched it, when the people haven't watched the film, they told him, "Do you speak Basque?" They don't ask that question to us, but with him they ask themselves. So I wanted to show this issue in a very pragmatic way, because I didn't want his Laulad to be the representative of the immigrants, and I don't want the film to speak about good immigrants, or films, or police and the bad and the good. It's a character, and like every character, there's things that we can approve, or some that we don't. But I don't want to make a social film that makes cliches out of this kind of characters. And for me, it was important to show that it's not something that will happen in the future. It's something that is actually happened these days. Khalil, like his own, Laulad's his own life, is not people that will come in the future. It's people that are here and live with us, amongst us. And somehow here people haven't accepted it, and socially, and they haven't introduced them in their films or imaginary. Ricardo, you said that at the beginning you didn't know if the film was actually going to happen, to be released, and in 2 weeks it'll be in the commercial cinemas. Yes, next Friday in the whole state of Spain. Yeah, the process of financing and presenting project. There's people that knew the project from the beginning told me everything was accepted because the script has changed so much from what we presented in the beginning. It's a very obvious transformation. At the beginning, it was a film that was scripted somehow, and we have been just removing a lot of parts of the film that were in the script, and it's a film that is much more empty, full of silences, and it's we bet on this because we do films that the kind of films that we want to watch, and that's what I did. I made a film that's the kind of film that I want to watch. I don't know if I've taken consideration of the people who like to see it, but I hope there is people that like the same thing that I do. Yeah, there must be one or two. So we're happy because it was quite a risky bet, and the result is good. It's going forward, and it's going to be released in commercial cinemas. Well, for those who haven't had the chance to watch it, it's going to be released on Friday, and it's about loneliness, it's about people, about silence, and one thing that is common into all films today, about feeling the film and not telling too much about it. Thank you to all of you, and we hope to see you again tomorrow. And for those who watch us on the screen, tune in with us anytime. Thank you. Goodbye.